today. I'll show you how that technique works. And it's kind of a two-step process going from Illustrator into Photoshop. All right. So I went through, I'll post marks, I don't know, sometime this week. Your part A of your assignment, okay, for your major assignment. Part A is the planning, and then you're going to create your video for your rebrand, right? Okay. So sometimes I just have some general comments in there. Sometimes I just give you a mark. I mean, if you got 90 and above or high 80s, like, you're pretty much golden, right? Okay. But some of the things I did see in that planning stage are a couple things that stuck out to me. Script length. Okay, you're writing away and you're coming up with the idea for your script. Okay, and you're creating the epic script. Sometimes we get wordy, right? So as in, we say too much. How long does this video have to be for your part B? Somebody bring it up. How long? I define a length. What is it? Do we know? It's around 2 minutes, right? So how do you know how long your script is? What are your options? You've wrote it all out. What are your options?
You can time yourself saying it out loud.
Absolutely. That's probably the best way. Time yourself. Okay? Record yourself and time it. That is truly the best way to tell how long your script is. Okay? Now, you have to realize, I say 2 minutes. Within 2 minutes, you need to have a call to action at the end, right? So that could be roughly 5 to 10 seconds. Maybe in your video, you're having title sequences, like introducing different sections. Everybody's different, right? Those have to be read on screen, so those could maybe be 5 to 10 seconds, right? And then if you have 5 of them, that becomes almost a minute just on title graphics. But what if your script is 2.5 minutes, right? So now you're starting to add up 2.5 minutes of you talking plus visual graphics on screen, 3.5, getting close to 4 minutes, right? It's something that we have to plan. We have to make sure our script isn't too long. So A, time yourself. What if it is too long? You gotta drop something. You gotta get rid of something. Okay? One of the things, generally speaking, if you have a script and it's in Word and it's a page long, that's roughly 5 minutes. Okay, roughly. Depends on the font size, it depends on all that, right? Okay? And the only reason why I know that is because I hired a lady who was an actress, and she's reading the script that we had wrote for a video, and it's 3 pages long, and before we filmed the video, she says to me, "Wow, this is a really long script." And I said, "Really? I mean, the video is only going to be 5 minutes." And she said, "Each page is 5 minutes." And she was right. It ended up being like 15 minutes long. Okay? So, we've got to make sure we're within those limits. So time yourself, or I found a script timer. Okay? Script timer, I think it's script-timer.com. Yeah, script-timer.com. And it's nice because I could take something like, say this is my script, copy it, paste it into this area, and hit calculate, and it'll tell me how long my script is. So this particular script is 3 minutes and 30 seconds, right? So if I was creating this script for your project, I gotta basically trim over 1.5 minutes out of my script. Okay, I would say you're probably safe at, again, it depends on every different project. If you're adding title graphics, if you're doing, how you're doing your call to action at the end and so forth, you probably wanna be around, 1:30 to 2 minutes, roughly. Okay? So that in the end, when you deliver it to me, I say around 2 minutes. Around 2 minutes can be 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Or you're 1 minute and 30 seconds, 1:45. But not past 3. That's not around 2. That's 3 minutes. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Make sure you've got the right amount of time at the start. If it's too long, trim it. So in some feedback I provided, your script seems kind of long. It was like 4 or 5 pages. Okay, so you're gonna have to trim it. All right. Some is tough to tell, just be wary of that. Can you change your script now that I've marked it? Yeah, sure you can. It's a plan. It's your plan, right? That's why we do it at the start before we do the filming. I learned the hard way, okay? I went from 5 minutes thinking I was getting a 5-minute video, and it was 15. Okay? So you can revise it. Make sense, right? Okay? So you can use that, or time yourself is the true test of reading your script out. One of the other things I noticed, I'm just gonna jump into After Effects, is this, text on screen. Okay, I haven't pressed play yet, but what's the first thing there's an issue with this? Yeah, the contrast between the background and the writing, you can't read it. So, this contrast between the text and the background isn't great. What else?
The font just makes it worse because all the letters are squashed.
Exactly. The font is not a really easy font to read. Absolutely. Okay? We have to think about that, right? Because if we're putting text on screen, it's not there forever, right? So if I press play, and you look away and then look up, the animation happens, blah, blah, blah. You're still reading, stop, next scene. Is that enough time? Right? What was that? Trying to read, you're trying to see the visual, right? But you're trying to read it as well. So it's kind of stressful, right? Because you're trying to take in all that information. So keep your text on screen short. Okay, keep it short. So something like, and make sure it's a font that you can read. Something like, so, green and teal, blue blobs. Could all that text I had on the other screen, which actually is defining what's happening, could me as the voiceover person be saying that? And that is the subtle text that's on screen, right? Yes? Yeah. Makes sense? Okay. Now, I'm not saying that your text has to be in the lower thirds. It could be in the middle of the screen too. You could centralize that. A lot of times you see videos that have centralized text. And actually, I feel like it's a preferred way to carry somebody through the story is to have centralized text right in the middle. but it's short and sweet. Okay, generally speaking, especially if you've got video going on behind it. Okay, I'm just telling you this because when I read through everything, there was some really, really long on-screen text. Okay, if you want to show really, really long on-screen text, show a title card. Okay, so a full background of color and have the text in the middle. Let them read it. Okay, but just don't make it be a novel. We don't want it to be a novel. It's a video. Right? If there's a lot of text that needs to be present, make the voiceover person do it. Okay? And then show just a little bit of text if you need to. Do you have to show text in your videos? No, you don't. I said you don't have to, but you need to plan for it. Okay? Sometimes you'll use it, sometimes you won't. But when you get into the video editing stage, it's nice to have it there already planned if you're going to use it. Yeah? Okay. Right? One of the other things I noticed was, and it's kind of a pet peeve of mine for sure, is well, not in your planning, but that I know from past experience doing this, is people adding drop shadows to their text. Okay? I can read it now. Yes? Does it look good though? Right? It doesn't really look great. So be careful when it comes to adding drop shadows to your text. I say stay away from it. Adding drop shadows is actually an art to itself, I believe. I know it's a simple thing, but you can go too far, right? Like this. You may think it's great, but it's actually, the general public probably thinks it's awful. Okay? So stay away from it. Try and find a place to put your text where it's readable. Okay? Could I, well, definitely we're not going to show all this text unless it's a title card, right? Because we have that animation going on in the background, it's just competing, it's too much. So the alternative would be to just add, well, take off the drop shadow, and then just add some background. Hello, computer. Right, and then have your text on there. Okay. And give it enough time to let the user read it, or the viewer read it. There's no competing. If it's that important to have this amount of text, we don't want to compete with it in our videos. So you cut away from whatever, person keeps talking, this is on screen. Yeah? Okay. Again, generally speaking, you don't want a ton of text on screen. This text, if it was, a huge part of my story and I had to show it, then I could centralize it and then put it in here. Okay? See that all the time. Right smack dab in the middle. Okay? I had it down here in the lower thirds. That's generally kept for like names and stuff like that, or places. Okay? Whereas this would be text that helps carry me through the story. Okay? But it's legible. It does have a bar that goes across it. But without it, it makes it hard to read. So it's my determination that I'm gonna need a bar in the middle. Okay, that's a design thing. Okay. But no use having text on screen if nobody can read it, right? It's not helping your story. Fair? All right. Okay. Graphics, where it is. All right. So we're going to talk simple animation. Before we get to simple animation, we're going to talk about some simple advertising that you may or may not be asked to do when you are out in the world as a designer, okay? On the design side of things. And they're called banner ads. We've all seen them. They're sometimes called web banners. They're also sometimes referred to as display ads for internet advertising, okay? They're embedded graphical advertisements that we see everywhere, okay? And it's a design thing where you have to, your clients will ask you to make them. And essentially, hopefully somebody clicks on them so they go to the client's product page and buys their product, okay? Like so, right? We all see these, yes? Okay, love them? They're fabulous, aren't they? Okay? Somebody's got to make them. Somebody's got to make them, right? And banner ads don't move, okay? There's still imagery. There's really kind of four things that make up a banner ad. The logo, the visual, the message, and the call to action, okay? Who's this for? What are they trying to sell me? Where do I need to go? That's it. Okay? In my opinion, I hate doing these. They're kind of boring. Okay? But when I'm doing like campaign work, so when I say campaign, like an advertising campaign for a product, they want to advertise that product everywhere. And obviously the internet is a huge part of that, right? So I would create whatever the campaign was about, and then it would go on their own personal site, but maybe it would go on another site. So, like on Reddit, let's say, or on Facebook, right? There's actually a large amount of money that goes into this stuff, okay? But when we break it down, it is a visual for whoever company it is. So, whatchamacallit? This is, the CAA in Canada, American Auto Association. Their text and then what we're gonna do, call to action, okay? I talked to, who uses Google or Chrome when they browse, okay? Almost everyone uses Chrome. I don't use it, okay? Chrome is the worst browser to track you, just so you know. Tracks every click you ever do. And that's why when you go on certain sites, you get advertising that's specific to you, okay? Chrome's terrible for it, okay? If you don't care about being tracked, who cares? But they'll serve up, different advertising that suits possibly your needs, okay? If you like I like Firefox. I use Firefox. I use Safari. There's one called Brave. Anybody ever heard of Brave? It's apparently got the Google engine to run it, or the Chrome engine to run it, but it doesn't track you. But you can allow it to track your clicks through tokens. It's kind of a weird system, but it's a really good browser. Okay. That's kind of off topic, but data collection is huge. So those are banner ads. Don't move. Now we got animated banners. These have been around forever, since the dawn of the internet. Okay. Banner ads and animated banners. Animated banners, same premise, really, is to animate some moving parts in a simple way to entice me, the user of that web page, to click on them and possibly go buy something. Okay? So something like so. Right, again, we've all seen these. Slightly animated, right? To entice you to click it. Okay? A little more engaging, a little more interesting, probably a little more fun to make, I would say, for me. Now, again, I talk about, creating these for campaigns, right? So, and I say, there's a lot of money that goes into this. And not necessarily a lot of money going into the making of these, but thinking of, so for instance, years ago, I did animated banner ads for 3M Canada when they partnered with Disney to make Scotch tape with Disney characters on it. I don't know if they have it around anymore. It was like Winnie the Pooh, and so we did a massive campaign to release these. So we did print ads, but I had to create animated banners, and they put them on Chatelain's website. Okay, so they advertised them on there. So this is a fictitious number, but Chatelain's website for a month could be $1,500 to put one image on it. Okay, they make a lot of money that way. Okay, so it cost 3M money for me to make their banners, but it also cost them money to put it on Chatelain's website. Chatelain makes money, I make money, and hopefully 3M made some money about advertising about their new product. Okay, so behind the scenes, there's a lot of money involved, even though it's a simple graphic. Okay, you bang that graphic off in, say you're a freelancer, bang it off in 5 hours, charge them $1,000. That's pretty cool, right? Am I saying that you could charge them $1,000? I'm not saying you can charge them $1,000. Okay. But anyways, animated versions of a flat graphic. More engaging? Would it make you want to click it more than just a regular image? Depends on the person, really. But I would say I'd be more apt to maybe venture and click on some of these if they're animated. Okay. Cinemagraphs. You guys have created cinemagraphs, I believe, in Jared's class, I think it was. Yes? I asked this to the last class. What software program did you use to make your banner or cinemagraphs? Do you remember?
Let me see an example for the
They told me Premiere. Was it Premiere? Or was it After Effects? Does it matter?
I think it was last week, it was online, and actually not go through live, but it was, it's like Premiere or something.
It doesn't matter. Truthfully, in the end, it doesn't matter what you used. okay, to create a cinemagraph. They're just cool, okay? I like cinemagraphs. They're pretty interesting. And they tend to make you just stare at them. I don't know about you, but me, I just stare at them. So stuff like this, right? Where you just isolate one area that's animated, okay? And the rest, everything else is still. You could do cinemagraphs in Photoshop. I've done them in Photoshop. I've done them in After Effects. Last class said they did them in Premiere. So I've never used Premiere to do it, but it doesn't really matter what software, okay? But they're pretty interesting, okay? I think they're pretty interesting. But they're simply animated. Great way to show off a product. Okay. So where could cinemagraphs live in this world of ours? We could put them on, definitely on the internet. We already talked about that. Social media. I think they're fabulous for social media. Okay. Social media advertising. Not that you can't put banner ads and just banner ads or animated banners on social media. I just find those more interesting. Okay. So we could advertise those on social media for sure. Here's another one. Infographics. Okay. This doesn't move. It's not animated yet. Okay. You probably did them in Jared's class, or maybe you're doing them in Jared's class. I don't know. Okay. And my definition may be slightly different than his, because I feel like infographics are really a creative thing and an impactful thing for boring content. Okay? When I think of that, think of infographics, that's what I think of. Okay? So I'm going to tell you why. And I say seemingly boring, because it's not probably boring, but seemingly it seems boring. Okay? So as a designer, we have to do these all the time. Infographics. Okay. Do you feel stressed about all that text already? Okay. Bear with me. Are you going to read all of it? Okay. Believe it or not, people don't like to read. This is a bold statement, but studies have proven that people do not have the time or attention span to read large amounts of text during work hours. Visual content is processed 60,000 times faster in your brain than written blocks of text. A staggering number for sure. Blah, 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 blah. Do you want me to continue? Okay. I don't want to either. Lot of information here, right? Lot of text. Can we take the good stuff, take the good meaning of this, okay, and condense it and make it beautiful and make it easy to digest? That's an infographic. That is that content, but now visually appealing, but taking out the best bits. Okay? 90% of our information transmitted to the brain is visual. That's one sentence in all that text. Yeah? It's an art to itself. So how infographics work, if I go back, okay? In our world out there, got a marketing team, they've got a new product, whatever that product is, because you can make infographics around products. Okay, I'll show you some. Or I'll show you some gifographics. They give you all this research. So here's everything we found out about, humans love good visuals. Here you go. I'll be like, okay, create an infographic for me. There's my job. So then it's your job, my job, to sift through this information and take out the best bits and make them visual. Make them easier to digest. Okay? So do I need to, believe it or not, people don't like to read. Do I need that in my infographic? No. Right? That's kind of like fluff. Okay? It's good to know if I'm going to read all of this, but in my visual, I don't need to say that. Okay? I don't need to say, this is a bold statement, but studies have proven that people do not have time or attention. I don't need all that. I need some of the good stuff, like visual content is processed 60,000 times faster in our brain. That's some good stuff. I can create a visual around that, right? Overall, 92% of all human communication is nonverbal. Oh, that's some good stuff, right? Get rid of the fluffy stuff. Keep the best bits. Yes, makes sense? And turn something that seemingly is boring into something that is beautiful. Yes? That's an infographic. That's your job as a designer. If I hire you, I give you all that content, I say, give me an infographic, you're going to create some sort of infographic pertaining to that information. Okay? Your client may bullet point it out for you. They may say, here's all the research, but I want you to focus on this, 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 and this. Great, that would be awesome. If they do that, they don't do it all the time. Okay? Right? Here's one for tobacco. I mean, they should for tobacco just put death. Right? No, I'm joking. I don't care. You can smoke. It's your health. Okay? It's your health. But we're taking a, quote unquote, seemingly boring bunch of information, but making it visual and easy to digest. Okay? Between the two graphics, looking at the two graphics, what software would you use to make an infographic that you know already?
Let's say XD or Illustrator.
Illustrator. Okay. I've never made one in XD. I suppose you could. Illustrator's made for this kind of stuff, right? Let's face it. Creating, these kind of illustrations and iconography and whatever, it has more tools than XD, right? So we're looking at something vector-based, okay, when you make an infographic. That's how we're going to start with our infographic. We're going to jump into Illustrator. Okay? Where do infographics live? Where can they live? Like when I say live, are they on the web? Are they on social media?
It's more of like when you research about something on Google about like a certain topic.
Yeah.
So like mostly it shows infographics.
Sorry, I maybe phrased that wrong. I mean, like, we've done our research, and so you've kind of nailed down one spot. They can live on the web, yes. Could they live on social media? Could we put an infographic on social media? Depends. Depends the size of it. This seems like a little bit much,
Yeah.
right, for social media, but I could break it up into this chunk here, right? Give it smaller doses, right? So if I was an anti-tobacco company or organization, let's say, I could then turn this into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 posts, right? Okay, so can live on the web, can live on social. Where else? Where else could we? What else could we do with this?
I would say like on like books and stuff related to health, like newspaper and stuff.
Yeah, so print. Yeah, absolutely. Turn this into print, right? What's nice about Vector, we can put this on a billboard. You're bombing down the 401, going into Toronto, down to Spadina. They've got all the billboards hanging out there. This could be one. Because it has the flexibility of being Vector to scale things up, scale things down, right? Some good flexibility there. The only thing that we have to make sure is CMYK for print, RGB, for devices, right? Truthfully, if I get asked for an infographic, I ask for where is it going to end up first, okay? If they say it's for a poster and it's for print, then I'll make it CMYK. If they say it's for the web, I make it RGB. If they say it's both, I'll make it in CMYK first, and then I'll switch it over to RGB for any web applications, okay? So, but the true meaning is that it's vector-based. Okay. Yeah, well, I talked about all that already. Okay, so gifographics, all right, taking it another step, kind of like banner ads are still, but then we have animated banners. We have infographics, we have gifographics. So essentially a gifographic is the beautified content that now animates, okay? To create even more visual appeal to that particular graphic, like so. Right? I mean, as an infographic, pretty interesting if it didn't move, but it takes it up a notch, another level, where it's animated. Simple animation though, right? It's not Cinema 4D, going on here. It's simple. Okay? Just breaking down how speakers make sound and so forth. Okay? We're going to do something similar to this, but we're going to do it in Photoshop. Okay? Well, we're not going to do it for a speaker, we're going to do it for something else. Right? So it's animated. First, this would be considered an infographic, but as soon as you add animation, it becomes a gifographic. Simple animation, leading my eye through #1 rule, content marketing, bow wow, all the way down, right? Simple, simple. Yeah, I already mentioned it. It's just taking your gifographic and turning it into, your infographic and turning it into an animated gifographic. Okay. Okay, it's about visual storytelling in the end. We can tell so much more when it comes to pictures than, say, reading large pieces of text. We visually connect quicker when we have some sort of visual applied to it. Okay? All the same principles of a regular infographic are applied to a gifographic, except it's animated. Is this a true statement? People have low attention spans. Yes? No?
Yeah.
We're pretty much bombarded by like little dings and bells and blah, blah, blah all day long. Okay? Over communicated, truthfully, in my opinion, and definitely over communicated. So to keep your attention on a web page for longer, we need to use some of these techniques to, keep your eyes on the page. Okay? And your clients will want to do that. Just having a small little animation like that makes it a little more visually interesting. Okay? Generally speaking, gifographics are great for mobile, okay, because they're vector, and they're long, okay? Gifographics are long, top to bottom, long and skinny, okay? Generally speaking, okay? So they're great for mobile, for sure. So sizing, again, generally speaking, when I've had to make a gifographic, I've made them 600 pixels wide, and length, that's general as well, 1800 pixels long, but it can be longer. Sure it can, okay? These are general rules. One of the reasons why I made gifographics 600 pixels wide is because my client would include these in their email template. In their email template, they figured out that their email template at 600 pixels wide works for most, if not all, email programs like Outlook and Hotmail and so forth. So that's why they kept it at 600 pixels wide. If you were to do it for Facebook or Instagram, you would find out their specifications and make it to that, right? I'm not trying to say to you that this is set in stone. It's a general rule. Never made one skinnier. Made one a little bit larger in length, or width, sorry. Okay? It just depends on the internet site, social media platform, wherever it's gonna go. Find out what it is, make it that size. I'm almost done, we can take a break, okay? Animation and graphics, rich content will get more social likes, I feel, because they're more interesting, okay? Get more shares, gifographics can engage the target audience, and gifographics and even infographics were great on mobile. Okay? Some of the things to consider when it comes to gifographics is try to come up with interesting iconography that speaks to the content, right? So when I was showing you about humans love visuals, it talked about the human brain is 90% more connected to visuals. So they showed a brain, right? Like a nicely sketched brain. Would you get the same effect if we used an actual photo? I don't know, it's kind of creepy looking at a brain like that, right? So it beautifies it, right? Give clear titles, okay, for your different sections. Include relevant images if you include images, and I'm going to show you an example here. You don't generally do show images, it's all vector. Okay? And then, just some other additional elements, graphical elements, and type to get the point across in your gifographic and infographic. Okay? They're cost effective, Okay, Gifographics add animation and are interesting, but they are a lot cheaper than explainer videos. Okay, so explainer videos. Do you know what I mean by an explainer video? It explains the topic, right? There's a company called Yum Yum, which is, what a great name. I'll show you. They do one for DocuSign, and it's pretty cool. I won't show you.
Elle is
all of
super
it.
connected. Social media, video chat, email, online shopping. It doesn't matter where she is in the world. She can do virtually anything. Well, virtually. So imagine her shock when one day her bank asked her to come in and sign some documents for a loan she applied for. It seemed a little outdated and old-fashioned. Danielle wondered why her bank has not taken advantage of DocuSign. Well, they should. DocuSign is changing the face of the financial services industry, enabling customers to provide.
Okay, I won't show all of that. Take a long time to create that? Damn straight. That would take a super long time. Okay? Your clients don't always necessarily have budgets to do something like that. Okay? I have no idea how much it costs Yum Yum to make that, but I don't know, it could be around $5,000. Right? Could I take the best bits out of this script, the most important information, and turn it into a gifographic? Absolutely. Okay. So there has been times working with clients where they're like, we want to show this off, but their budgets are low, right? They want something like this, but their budget, you know, it's like going to a restaurant, wanting the steak for $45, but you only got $5 in your pocket. Are you gonna get the steak? No, you're not gonna get the steak, right? So you give them other alternatives, and another alternative would be a gifographic. Okay, makes sense, I guess. Not everybody has big dollars. And something like this, if it's not templated, okay, if we had to illustrate all this and then animate it, I mean, man, oh man, it's a lot of work, okay? Whereas I could create a gifographic and I could do it in Photoshop, you know, maybe in 2-3 days, where this would take, I don't know, could take a team 2 weeks, I'm not sure. Okay, so budgets do play into account with some of the stuff that we do, but definitely when it comes to you know, engagement with like simple innovations like gifographics. So I'll show you some examples and then we'll take a break of like real ones that we created in the past. Okay, let's see. Okay. Here's one. Okay. So I said, it's vector, right? And generally speaking, this is all vector except for the image up top. For 3M Canada, they asked us always to put a raster image up top. Okay, that was part of their thing. So that's why we did it. You know, generally speaking, again, it's usually all vector. But the client asked for a real image up top to advertise this Scotch tape. Well, you got to do it then. Okay. You just have to. All right. So that's a real life example of a gifographic. had to do a French version too. Okay. In Canada, when you work with companies that are big, whatever you do in English, you gotta do in French. Okay? It's a have-to thing. So obviously 3M being a Fortune 500 company, you know, one of the massive companies in this world, home base is here in London. Okay? Whatever they do in English, you gotta do in French. Okay? If you work for them in the States, I would say their second language in the States would be Spanish. Okay? So sometimes I've had to create English, French, Spanish, and then if it went to somewhere in Asia, I'd have to add that as well, separate. Okay. Or I just share my files with them. Do I know French? Am I bilingual? No. But I know how to copy and paste. Okay? Do the English first, send it off to the translation team. They send it back to me, and then it's not glorious, don't get me wrong. But it's copying and pasting, right? It's not that hard. So there's that. That would be a sample one. And I think I have one more. I think this one's just an infographic. And the other class kind of went, wow, Joe, there seems like a lot of versions here. Okay? Because there is version 1 to version 10. So this is how it started. And we worked our way through down to 10. Okay? That's a sample of their infographic. Basically, right? That's our basis point for a gifographic. Again, they want a raster image up here, but everything else is vector. Okay? If they wanted us to, if they gave us more money, we could turn it into a gifographic now for them. Okay? They use these in their emails. All right? I had a question from the other class. They're like, man, you did 10 versions of this? I said, yeah. And they were like, well, you know, like how many revisions should you do? I said, well, it depends. Depends on if you quoted it. If you said there's only 2 revisions, then there's only 2 revisions. Okay? And then they have to start paying me more money because that's my time, right? If there's no budget, make 1,000 revisions. I don't care. You're gonna pay for it, okay? Make 2,000, even better. Okay. But you know, it all depends on the project. Okay, that's it. Take a break. Be back around quarter-ish after. Make sure you have Photoshop open. Make sure you have Illustrator open. Make sure you downloaded that asset that I asked you to download. Open it in Illustrator and we will make a gifographic. Okay? cerveza, por favor.
Y mostrar que te salió allá abajo. Pero muestra que muestra ahí en los canales. A ver, qué cantidad muestra. Considerados 60. No, espere. No, ahí no, ahí abajo. Ahí no, ahí abajo. No está con nada. Ah, bueno, cambiemos, mira, vamos a salir de los. Cambiemos el tema. Y el depende, cambiarlo para a ver, y miremos versus la foto que me mandaste. No, pero el inspector está en la tercera, en el inspector. Sí, estoy igualito. Espere que ustedes realmente están locos, o sea, lo que yo entendía ahí es esto versus el de la que se llama Vita, la chiquita. Ajá. Entonces, usted tiene uno, dos y uno.
Yeah, yeah,
Those are the.
It has so much
Yeah,
more.
lo podemos descubrir.
You know what size? Okay? Because what I would do, is if it's 4K, with your final video, bring your video into 4K. It'll be fine. What I'm gonna say is, I would do that, don't cut that off. So that's the beauty of shooting. That looks a little bit different. It's not gonna be that noticeable. What I would do is. So I would cheat a bit. I would create a graphic in Photoshop. One single layer. And basically do, like, bring your footage in. So, this is.
Y solo metió 3 demandas.
Okay, send me an email. So here. This is an old machine.
Pero mira, si se
Yes.
Certainly. Yeah, I'm just trying to interject a bit of that like briefing. But because you have 4K, I think it's super nice that it would end up looking. And then that way. And that's definitely.
Yeah, it was that even though I know from words, but I keep trying to do it. At first it was too short, so it was like the receiver. So it was a long and then I was able to way to do it after that.
The only thing I would say is maybe the scenes, if this doesn't work, the scenes that you shot where something is lower.
Yeah.
Reshoot those. And then try and shoot at the same time. And hopefully you remember what the light was like. Or something. That would be the only thing. Other than a little bit of the video trickery. So the second time around.
Quicker, yeah, I agree that it took so long.
I love all this setup stuff. And that's nice touch. So I'm already there.
I told you.
Yeah. It's up to you.
And the video that I'm shooting, I think is I'm not like a fan, and that's because of the
Some graphics. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's around 2.5 minutes. Minute 45. Not a minute. But you see, you didn't have to send me all the photos.
Yeah, after that
That's okay. No big deal. No big deal. Cool.
If I want to take a video again, we should take
What? So what was the other person? Like, or you mean like redo the whole thing, but have two people in it? Yep. Oh, with two people? Maybe there was more. Yeah. Yeah, you can do one. Totally good. Yeah, if it makes sense. Absolutely. That's fine.
Because I have my friends, so I have to
it shows the question?
Yeah, it does.
So between the first video and the initial?
Yeah, for example, one part of this video that he said is
Yeah, so you would introduce you as whatever you said, like a graphic in the video. And then you would talk about whatever you're gonna talk about. And then when it's time for him to talk, you would introduce him. He would talk about a certain part of it, whatever. Keep, chunk it out so that it makes sense where it's not you're saying something and then he's finishing the sentence. Kind of thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just so you know, I apologize, but I can't stay late today. So we're done at 6. I gotta be out of here. We got an appointment. Okay? I will be jogging to my appointment. All right. So, open this up in Illustrator. Okay? Everybody got it? I think I even provided you fonts. It doesn't really matter. Okay? If the fonts don't load, it's okay. It's not a big deal. But essentially, this is our infographic that we're going to animate. And it is, created from some of this content. Okay? Lots and lots of content. Taking smaller chunks, make an infographic, right? So it's actually part of 3 designs that I did. I think I have 3 designs. That doesn't matter. You don't have to see the other 2. But essentially, we're going to take that graphic and turn it into this. Okay. So it animates on, animates off, and can be used in an email, could be online, could be on social, and so forth. Okay? So we're going from Illustrator, and we're going to go into Photoshop. Photoshop's going to do the animation for us. Okay? Now we'll just, I'll show you the technique of it all. We'll keep it simple. Okay, but really we could make it more complex, right? We could make it smoother as well. Because essentially what this is made up of is the basis of what we've been talking about when it comes to like using Premiere is frames, right? It's frame, picture after picture after picture after picture, right? The more pictures you have, remember I showed you the guy running that I did in 3D? 30 frames per second, he ran pretty smooth. 10 frames per second, he was pretty choppy, right? So just knowing the more frames we add, the smoother the animation, the larger the file size, right? So it all comes into play, right? When we're doing some sort of animation. More frames, the larger file size, okay? And for the web, we want to keep it, fairly small file size. We don't want to put a 200 gig file to have somebody play, or meg file. We want to keep it in the smaller megabyte area. I don't know what this one is. I can't remember. Okay? And we can always control that too. It's like 194 kilobytes, which is perfect. Not even a megabyte. Okay? So let's go into Illustrator. And take a look at our layers. Okay? So we can copy and paste. Go back and forth, copy and paste, right? From Illustrator to Photoshop. I would say that would work if we didn't have to do all these elements, okay? We're just gonna export from Illustrator a PSD file and then open up the PSD file, okay? One of the one of the reasons why I wanna do that is because if I export from Illustrator with the correct settings, it will retain all these layers for me in Photoshop. And it'll even retain the text as actual text. So if I wanted to animate the letters on, so say I wanted L to appear, then U, then N, then G, and S, it gives me that flexibility. Okay, so text stays text. Okay. Yes, we could copy and paste, but for this particular instance, it would be kind of a nightmare. Okay, so let's just export it out. File, export, export as. Okay, I'll just blow that up. Export, export as. So save this wherever you want. I'm gonna just save it on my desktop. But before we actually hit save, we need to change this format from PNG to Photoshop. So PSD. Okay. I'm gonna save it on my desktop. I'm gonna hit export. We should get another window that pops up. There it is over there. Okay. Take a look here. Currently, my graphic is in CMYK mode. You can see it up here. CMYK. Okay. I left it in CMYK, or created it in CMYK, knowing that I was going to animate it later. Okay. So in Photoshop, we can change the color to be RGB. Okay. Because the restrictions, there's some restrictions when it comes to the color mode. Right now it's in CMYK, it's 72 PPI, pixels per inch, which is fine. But it allows me to write layers so I can preserve the text and preserve maximum editability in Photoshop. Okay? If I change it to RGB, it all goes away. Okay? It flattens it. And I don't want to flatten it. Okay? I want to have all those layers so it has some flexibility when it comes to my animation. So that's why I'm leaving it at CMYK. Okay? Change it later in Photoshop to be RGB. So CMYK, write all layers, preserve the text editability and maximum editability overall. Hit OK. There we go. We're done with Illustrator. Hide Illustrator. Go find your PSD file. Hopefully your desktop doesn't look like mine because I can't find mine. Okay. Desktop. Infographic. There it is. Open it up in Photoshop. You'll probably get this, some text layers might need to be updated and so forth and so on. Just hit update, that's fine. So it'll update. Okay. You may not get that, it depends on your computer. Okay. I didn't have to do this in last class, but that's interesting. We've got some of this extra area here on the sides, transparency. Do you have that? Okay. What can we use in Photoshop to get rid of that? Crop it, right? Use the crop tool. Okay. So C on your keyboard for the crop tool. And then just drag over edges and crop this up. Okay. One of the things I'm going to say is you can keep this on, possibly, delete crop pixels. So what that does is delete all this area out here. You can uncheck it, and then that area will stay. It's kind of here nor there, really, in this particular instance. Okay. I can uncheck it. It's going to look no different. It'll just be skinnier. Okay, so that's our starting point. Now, my layers, looking at your layers. To keep this simple, okay, one of the things when we export from Illustrator into Photoshop, all the main layers, they come into Photoshop as folders. And then the sub-layers are inside those folders, okay? So what we're gonna do actually is just a little bit of layer management right now. We're gonna take all the layers that are inside folders and move them outside the folders and delete the layer. And delete the folder. Okay, don't delete the layer. We want the layer, okay? That's gonna be our first task. We're gonna do a bunch of setup before we actually do any animation. So start taking all your layers, taking them, dragging them outside your folders, and delete your folders. Okay? That's going to be our first step. And then name anything appropriately. So for instance, my very top layer is the lungs, but it's called group. So double click it, call it lungs. Drag it out. Delete that whole folder. It says there's content in there, but it's just other folders, so that's fine. Get all these outside of those folders. We have something like so. Once you have everything outside the folder, okay, I'm going to select from my line here at the bottom. I'm going to hold shift and select lungs at top. So I select all these layers by holding shift. And Then, once I've selected my layers, I'll hold Shift again, and I'll select my folder, and then Photoshop will take all those layers and put it into a group for me, all at once. So I don't have to drag and drop and drag and drop and drag and drop, okay? So that'll be our next step. Hold Shift. Create a new group. We call group 1. I'm going to rename it 10. And the reason why I didn't put the white bar, the background, in my 10 group folder is because it doesn't change. It doesn't animate, so it can stay outside, right? We're going to animate this graphic in 10 frames. My last folder, okay, essentially my last frame is going to look like this. So that's why I made it number 10. Okay? And we're gonna reverse animate this. So we're gonna work kind of backwards. This is the end result. We're gonna start now, create the starting point on frame 1. Okay? So we basically have one frame done. Didn't have to do anything, really. Okay? So you can duplicate this again, or I shouldn't say again, but right click on the folder and go to duplicate. Duplicate group. Call it 1. And move it below 10. Well, in actual fact, no, I lied to you. Don't do that. Don't do that. We got more setup to do. Okay. I didn't really lie to you. All right. We need to work with the lungs. Okay. We need to get all the additional layers placed on frame 10 now so that we can use them through frame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay? So, what I want to do is separate the lungs, so the veins, this lung and this lung, from the lines going up, or the lung lines that are going up. Okay? So I want you to duplicate your lungs layer. So right click on it, duplicate it, duplicate layer. This one we'll call lungs lines. The one underneath we'll call lungs veins. Differentiate them. Okay. They're the exact same right now, right? They're just duplicated, renamed. Okay. So in my lung lines, okay, go to that layer, shut off your lung veins. So we just see one. Now you can do this in many different ways, okay? I'm gonna use the lasso tool, so L for lasso tool. And I'm gonna create a selection that cuts down here, goes around, cuts up here, goes up to the top, over, and back down to isolate these lines, okay? Using the lasso tool. You can use the polygonal lasso tool, it's up to you how you want to do that, but I'll go L. If you want to use the polygonal lasso tool, which is underneath the regular lasso tool, if you want to know the shortcut, hold Option or Alt and you'll get the polygonal lasso tool. And I'm gonna create my selection like so. Okay, I'll do it again. L for the lasso, Option or Alt, click, release, click, release, click, release. Click, release. Go back up top, create that selection. Okay. You don't have to use the polygonal lasso tool. You could just use the regular lasso tool if you've got, you know, a steady hand. So I'm just focusing on this area. So what we're gonna do, this is selected. We're on the lungs lines layer. We're gonna inverse our selection. So flip it so that all of this outside is selected, and then we're gonna delete this off the screen. Okay? Does everyone have the selection made? Okay? So go select, inverse. On the menu, select, inverse. Selects everything outside those two lines. And then delete or backspace. Okay. Make sure you keep your selection live. Don't click anywhere else. Yes? Good, good? Not good? Well, you hit the mask. So you now not get now all of this is selected. So on here, this layer, and this little layer, hit back. All right, so now that we've deleted the lungs from our lines, let's shut off our lungs lines and turn on our lungs veins. Turn this off, turn this on. Select our lung veins. Now we have to inverse it back, okay? Because if we press backspace now, I want to show these. I don't want to show these on this layer. So I need to inverse it back. Okay, so I shut off my lung lines so we can see what's happening. Lung veins on that layer. Select, inverse, backspace, delete. Now you can go Command or Control D to deselect everything. There. Select, deselect layers. Or not deselect layers, sorry. Deselect. I just need to separate those two elements because I want to animate them separately. Well, I don't really have to, but anyways, makes for fun Photoshop. Okay. Okay. Now on mine, because we're zoomed in, you can see these little bit of white there, or pink. It's just because it's the thickness of the marquee that we did. Me being finicky, I'm going to go my lungs lines, and I'm just going to use my lasso tool and add a little bit of white here. Okay. Attention to detail. That's us as designers. Lungs lines. I'll go Command plus. Zoom in. You can see these little lines here. All for the lasso tool. And I will just freehand it. Hold shift. Go around here. Okay. You go edit, fill it with white. Shortcuts. So, for instance, I have yellow here. I want the default colors. E for default. Okay, so black in the foreground, white in the background. And is it Command delete? Fills or Control backspace fills those selections with the background color. Okay, if we want to fill it with black, Option or Alt backspace. Okay, just a shortcut. Command or Control backspace fills it with white, or you can go Edit, Fill, and choose your background color. Fill it that way. I never used that. As soon as I figured out that shortcut, I use it all the time. Okay. It's like one of those have-to shortcuts, in my opinion. Cool. Almost there. We're almost ready to do animation. We got one more setup. We're gonna hide these veins. We're gonna hide them because we want them to draw on, right? So we want to make the veins on frame 1 look like they're filled. Okay, all white. So we're going to do this. So I'm going to go Control or Command D to deselect, or select, deselect. Okay, Command or Control D. Just above my lungs veins, I'm going to use the pen tool. Okay, P for pen. Probably from Design and Image 1, you use the pen tool to do what? Cut things out, make paths, right? You can also make shapes. So up top here, if you have paths, turn it to shape. And you'll create a whole new shape layer. Okay? We're gonna fill it with white, and we're gonna go and do the contour around here, all the way around and come back to the start. Filled with white makes everything look like it's disappeared. Then when we want to go do our animation, we can move the points that we created to reveal the lungs. Okay? So first things first, let's make sure we're on shape. Change the fill color to be white. You have stroke, make it no stroke. Okay. Come down here, and I'm going to click. Release the less points, the better, because it'll be less confusing. Go around this contour. Notice it's starting to fill in my shape. Back near the start and close it. All right, if you want to add a point, just roll over any area and it should turn into a plus sign. You want to delete a point, just roll over the point and we'll go minus. If you want to move the points around, hold Command or Control, click off, then click on, and then you can grab points all through the pen tool. You get the white selection tool by holding Command or Control. Okay, click off, click on, you can move your points around. Because that's what we're going to do. We're just going to move these points around to eventually reveal the lungs. Okay? Everybody love the pen tool? In Illustrator, do you love the pen tool? Yeah? No? No? I know. I've been teaching this for a while. People don't like the pen tool. Okay? So, it creates a brand new shape layer for us. So I'm going to double click it and call it left lung vein. Okay, so it makes sense. Because I know you guys love the pen tool, you have to draw it on the other side too. Create another brand new shape layer. And once you're done, you just rename this one right lung. Select my move tool. And there we go. Command S to save. Make sure we save. So now we have all the elements that we need to actually do some animation. Okay. These two shape layers that we created are going to be animated where we move the points around. Okay. lastly, before we can create frame 1, we want to go on our lungs lines. Okay? So this layer, and we want to add a layer mask. Okay? And hide parts of our veins, because these are going to draw up and appear. So let's go to our lungs lines, add a mask, make sure you're on the mask layer, okay? So, sorry, make sure you're on the mask that's on the layer. M for the marquee tool. Click and drag down a rectangle. Then fill it with black. So the background color. Command or Control backspace. So that you have a little black mark on your mask. Everywhere it's black, it disappears. Everywhere it's white, it appears. Once you've done that, there's a little lock here. Click the lock to get rid of it. Okay? So that will allow us to move the mask without moving the layer. So if I go V for the move tool, I can move around my mask. Okay? And that's what we're going to use to animate our lungs on. So on frame 1, it's going to look like this. Frame 2, like this. Frame 3, like this. Frame 4, 5, and so forth. We're going to start here. Command S to save. So now, truly, we have our starting point. Okay. Have all the elements in this layer that we can utilize to go from 1 to 10. Okay. So once we have those in there, we'll right click on our group, go duplicate group. And we'll rename the group 1. Drag it underneath. Okay. I can go into frame 10 now, or group 10, sorry. And I could, well, because this is going to be our end result, I'm going to turn off my right lung vein and my left lung vein. I have to hide, sorry, group 1. And then select the mask that is on lungs lines, and I'll just, pull it up there. So that's my end result on frame 10. Frame 1 is going to look something like so. Okay, to get this technique to work, it's going to be a lot of turning off of groups, turning on of groups, shutting off of layers, and so forth. Okay? So our end result is going to look like this on frame 10. Our starting result will be like frame 1, or group 1. Sorry. All right. You need a break? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I can give you 5. give you 5 minutes. You can get this started and then I can.
My screen is big. Actually, I can check the perfect. Make sure you don't command D to destroy. Shortcut, okay, so it's going to fill the background color. It is Control. Okay, Alt. Slide. Okay, I can never remember which one's which. Try Control delete or Alt delete. And it's just adding that. Or you can edit. Okay. Okay, so these are your lights. So that's that, right?
frame, so we can't do it, because everything's revealed. So, we might as well. So that's 10. It's gonna be the final. Okay? No problem.
No, it's already been, it's already like the color.
Okay, we're going
But previously it was white. It was white. Yeah.
Okay, so now you're done.
It's already done. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know. What's wrong with me?
Okay. Hopefully we're close. It's time to actually start animating things. Okay. So essentially, we've got our end result on 10. Okay. Well, we're going to start with frame 1. Okay. Now, to do like any kind of animation in Photoshop, we need to change our workspace out. Okay. Right now, we're in Essentials, our workspace. window, workspace. I'm in essentials. I want to go to motion. Okay? And that's going to change my options in Photoshop. So, I mean, Photoshop is just so vast. There's so many things that you can do with it. One thing is video editing and animation. I've used Photoshop to do rotoscoping. Ever heard of rotoscoping? Okay. If you haven't, what rotoscoping is, say you film me walking. Okay, I'm walking along. Rotoscoping is me, or you, cutting me out of the background. Frame by frame by frame. Okay? So I use Photoshop to do it. Just because I wanted to do it fairly quickly, and I knew Photoshop at that time maybe a little bit better than After Effects. Okay? After Effects has way more tools for that now, but it didn't back in the day. So I use Photoshop. Okay? So we want to change our workspace to motion to give us those animation or video options that Photoshop has. Okay, so it should look something like so. Okay. Get a timeline that shows up down here. Because we're really going to work with this timeline that shows up here and turning off our groups to create our frames of our animation. Okay? You'll notice down here it says create frame animation. You may have create, I think video is the other option. Okay, so if you have create video timeline, make sure it's create frame animation because we want to go frame by frame by frame by frame. Okay. This is where you could import a full video into Photoshop and create a full video timeline. So let's make sure we got create frame animation. Okay. Make sure layer 1 is visible. Okay, have it turned on, have frame 10 turned off. We don't want frame 10 visible until we get to frame 10 in our timeline down here. Okay. So expose your layers for group 1. Okay, and we'll keep this super simple. Won't go too elaborate. We'll do 2 things. We're gonna maybe we'll animate 2/8 and donor day and lungs, the word lungs, and we'll animate on the lung lines and show the veins. Okay, we'll try, that's what we'll do. Could we make it more complex? Sure. Okay. We could possibly have just T show up and these letters not be there on frame 1. And then on frame 2, we have W show up and the rest aren't there. We can make it as complex as we want to, okay? And you can, okay? Let's keep it simple. The idea is to understand the process of it and how to do it, okay? So on our group 1 layer, I'm going to move my 2/8 wording with my move tool. So V for the move tool. I like to use this process. I don't like this auto select. Okay, it's a personal preference to me. I don't like having that turned on. I just like to right click, see what Photoshop thinks I want to click on, and it gives me a list. and 2.8 is one of them. So I'm gonna select that, and then it selects 2.8 in my layers for me, okay? Just the way I like to do things. However you wanna do it, okay? And then I'm gonna use Shift, left arrow, and move it off screen. Okay? I'm using Shift left arrow because then I know it's moving precisely by 10 pixels at a time. Okay? DonorDay.ca, right click, DonorDay.ca, selects my layer for me, hold Shift, is my up arrow, 1, 2, 3, it's gone. Right click on my lungs, layer, hold Shift, right arrow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Okay, so we haven't created a frame yet. We're just setting up our first layer, how we want it to look. We're setting up what we want our first frame to look like, okay? But we haven't created it yet, all right? So once we have it to where we want it, go down here and click Create Frame Animation. Click that. First frame is created. Places it in the timeline for me. Okay? Right? Group 1 is being shown at frame 1. Yes? See how they correlate back and forth? Let me close my group. Frame 1 is on, down here, and group 1 is visible. Yes? Okay. Some settings here. We can set the time that frame 1 and group 1 are being shown. Right now it's 0 seconds. So we could change that to be, if we hit the drop down, 0.2 seconds. If we want, okay? Experiment, right? We only have 10 frames. Okay? The other thing is, right here it says forever. So essentially we put it up on the web, it just runs forever and ever and ever. Has options, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make it run forever, but it does have options to play once, play 3 times and stop, you know, or other, like 10 times, so forth, okay? We're gonna leave it at forever. So it just constantly goes. Okay. So, it's a little finicky, okay? We're gonna create a brand new frame. So I'm gonna use this plus button. Duplicate frame selected. We got 2 frames. Okay, 2 frames. We're starting our animation now. But what else do we gotta do? We've got 2 frames. First frame shows group 1. Second frame needs to show group 2. But we haven't created group 2 yet. We need to do it now. So I'm going to select group 1, duplicate it, and call it 2. Right click, duplicate group, call it 2. Okay. It's a little finicky because now that I've exposed these 2 frames, I'm on frame 2, sorry, these 2 groups. I'm on frame 2. I want frame 2 to be seen, but not frame 1. So I need to shut it off. It's a little bit of layer group management. Okay? I'm going to go back to frame 1. You'll notice that on frame 1, group 2 is showing. So I need to shut group 2 off. I'll go back to frame 2. Now frame 2 is not showing, or group 2. I need to turn it on. Okay? Why does it do it? I don't know. Okay? Is there an easier way around it? Could be. Okay? It's just a bit of layer control. Okay? Group control and frame control. Going back and forth. So now that we're on frame 2 and we have group 2 created, we just need to add some animation. Right? The text that we took off to the side. One over here, there was one here, there's one up top. Let's have it kind of peek in a little bit now. Okay? So expose your layers for group 2, making sure you're on frame 2. And select, say, 2-8. V for the move tool. I'm going to hold shift. Right arrow. 1. I'm going to go to lungs layer. Hold shift. Left arrow. 1, 2. I'm going to go to my lungs lines. Select the mask. Okay, make sure it's the mask. V for the move tool. Hold shift, up arrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I go to 1, starts like so, I go to 2, start to see the animation coming together. Yes? But we should expose, say, the lungs, like the veins in the lungs. We haven't done that yet. It's a little more trickier. I shouldn't say tricky. It's not really not that tricky. You just have to understand the concept. Okay? So I'm going to go to, say, my right lung or my left lung, doesn't matter which one you choose, and go P for the pen tool. And then I'm going to hold Control or Command. Click on the area that I know that I went around to highlight it and allow me to select the points. Okay, so that's my next step. On frame 2, making sure I'm in group 2. Let me zoom in. P for the pen tool. Let's start with my, say, right lung. Have it selected. Zoom in. Control plus or Command plus. Hold Command. Click on a point. Drag it backwards. say that's as far as the right lung is gonna go on frame 2. I'll go to my left lung layer, like my cover-up layer, so left lung veins. Hold Command with the pen tool, click on a point, and start to move points backwards. Maybe this one goes a little farther. Toggle between 1 and 2. Okay. Is it working? Hopefully. Is it tedious? Yes. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is tedious. Okay. But if you have the patience to come up with something interesting, you know, it's your job. You get paid for it. So now, I got 2 frames. And in actual fact, we have 3 frames done because frame 10 is actually group 10. We'll duplicate frame 2. Once we're happy with what we've revealed, duplicate it, create frame 3, right click on group 2 to duplicate it, call it 3, turn off 2, and then you're going to have to cycle through frame 2, turn off frame 3, frame 1, turn off group 3, back to frame 3, turn on frame. Okay. Now, once we have everything set up, we have the right groups being shown when the frames are being cycled through. Let's do a little more animation on frame 3. Okay, I'm going to select my lungs layer. So my lungs lines, select the mask, V for the move tool, hold shift, up arrow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 8. Select that layer, hold shift, right arrow, 1, 2. Or maybe just 1. I don't know, it's up to you now, right? DonorDay.ca. I'm just going to use my down arrow key. Reveal a bit of it. My lungs layer. 1. And then go back to my lungs veins, left and right. P for the pen tool, hold Command or Control. Start moving points around to reveal more of the vein. Will this get messy? Sure. Okay, it will get a little messy. Happy with that move? Go to my left lung. Command or Control on the keyboard. Start moving points around again. Keep revealing. starting to see the animation take place, right? Say this is frame 10. Okay, we only did 3 frames, I know. But, or let's say we need, thinking of frame 10, going to frame 3, if we wanted it to stay longer, I would just change from 0.2 seconds on screen, say it's on for 2 seconds. Then it holds, and cycles through. We just have to make all the frames, right? So it makes sense. So pretend we went through everything. We went from 1 frame to 10 frames. Because what are you going to do now if you want the 4th frame? You're going to duplicate the 3rd frame, and then you're going to duplicate the 3rd group. Go back through your frames and make sure the right ones are turned on or turned off. Go back to frame 4 and then change it again to reveal more. Yes? Okay. Simple animation. Simple, simple, simple. You just have to understand the technique. Okay. Like really, we could have used a layer mask here too to hide all this, right? Like we did the lines. Could. Different way of doing it. Okay. I mean, once you know Photoshop, you know nobody knows everything about Photoshop. Okay. Photoshop's massive. But some of the techniques using layer masks and using shape layers and stuff, you can create some interesting animation. Okay. Mind you, don't think of Photoshop as like After Effects. It's not that. It's not Adobe Premiere really either. It's not built for that. It's built for photo manipulation, but you can do simple animations like this in here. So great, it's done. How do we get it out of here to show the world, right? Is our next step. Okay? So what I'm gonna do is, your client says, this is awesome, it's complete. You're gonna go to File, Export, and I like using this option, Save for Web. File, Export, Save for Web, Legacy. Okay, you should get a new window that pops up. Looks something like so. Okay, under where it says presets, unnamed, make sure you do a GIF or GIF, I call it. I don't know. Do you guys call it GIF? It's GIF. To me, it's GIF. Some people call it GIF. I know. I think both are acceptable. GIF seems weird to me. It's a GIF. Make sure it's a GIF or GIF. All right? Because I don't know if you remember way back in first semester we talked about, well, I don't think I taught, Rob taught you, different file formats, okay? And one of the great things about a GIF is that it retains animation in one single file, okay? So that's why we're gonna use it. These other ones, JPEG, PNG 8, PNG 24, WBMP, I've never used that one, I don't even know what it is. Don't, okay? So we need to use a GIF. We got web bit, I don't know. And then go down here, you can see that it's saying looping options is forever, and that's what we had when we set it up. You can play it here too, if you want. I don't know if it'll work, yeah. And hit save. All the other default stuff should be fine. Save it to your desktop. And you should now have a graphic that is ready for the web. Okay. Put that into your website, or, you know, depending if wherever it goes, right? Goes in an email, goes in social media, whatever. It's now viewable to everyone. So it's really the only file format that I know that is an image but retains animation in it. Okay. Good or bad?
Would you be able to use something like that for, like, say, like your image?
For a hero image?
Yeah.
Yes, you
Yeah.
could.
And it would
Like in a banner,
Mhm.
like at the top of your website, sure, you could.
And it would keep
You-
its animation and stuff, right?
Yeah, it'll just play, yeah. You can put that as like a background animation in the header area and have text over top or something, sure, you could.
So it'd be the same way you would get it out using your image tag. You would just, same way you get the image tag, you get the GIF.
Yeah, you just link, in your code to a GIF instead of a JPEG.
It just click on it.
Yep. I mean, there are limitations, right? Like, you're not gonna get super smooth animation, okay? Generally speaking, okay? If you want super smooth animation, then you could do CSS animations, or, you know, do more like code-driven ones. Or you could actually just use a video. Right? You get to determine that kind of thing, right? All right. Yeah, that's it, that's all. Okay, like I said, I apologize, I can't stay late, okay? But, next week, what are we doing? We got 2 or 3 weeks left, I think. 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. No, content driven will be done in